You didn't get into sales to be average. You got into this profession to win, to control your own destiny, to be among the ultra-high performers. But let's be real, sometimes it feels like you're on an island, like you're hitting a ceiling. You see the giant enterprise teams getting world-class training and you're wondering, when is it my turn? Well, your turn is right now. Welcome to Salesgravy Live. We've taken the same exact elite training frameworks that we deploy for the world's biggest companies and we've ripped the doors off. No massive enterprise contracts, no barriers, just access to the most tactical, high-impact sales training on the planet. Salesgravy Live isn't a bunch of boring seminars. It's high-octane sales immersion. You're in the room with hungry, driven professionals just like you. And we aren't talking theory. We're handing you the playbook. Fanatical prospecting, sales EQ, mastering objections, advanced closing, and elite negotiation skills. The skills you can use right now to close more deals. Salesgravy Live is where careers are accelerated and small businesses scale up their sales teams. You leave with the energy, the network, and the tactical edge to crush your quota. It's time to invest in yourself. So get off the island and get into the training room at salesgravy.com/live, where you can learn about all of our upcoming workshops and live training events. So grab your seat before they're gone. Welcome back to another episode of the Salesgravy podcast. On this episode, I've got something really special for you. This is like a Super Bowl episode for me because I'm with the great Pat Lencioni, who is one of my all-time heroes and one of the greatest minds in the world today on leadership. We're going to be discussing his new assessment and concept called the Working Genius, which is a productivity tool that we run our entire business at Salesgravy on. And I don't exactly know where this conversation is going to go, but I can tell you for a moment that I'm total fanboy. I am so excited and grateful to you, Pat, for joining us. Welcome to the Salesgravy podcast.
It's great to be here, Jeb. And I think anyone who's ever spoken to me that knows me knows that we never know where it's going to go. So that's kind of how all my conversations are.
Very good. Well, let's start with this book, The Working Genius. I'll hold it up so everybody who's watching can see it. And if you're listening, just go to your local Amazon account and type in The Working Genius. You'll find it. And also for folks who are watching, no, I never use notes, but I'm using notes because this, again, is Super Bowl. My team at Salesgravy has fully embraced Working Genius. And if you go around in our office, you'll find a DISC profile and a Working Genius profile at everybody's workstation together. We talk about it, we work through it. One of the things it's done for us is it's created this awareness of how we work. And as you've probably heard the saying, awareness is like the sun. Anything that it touches has a tendency to transform, and it has had that transformative impact on our business.
Oh, that's great.
So I'm just curious, like what was happening in your world as a leader? What were you struggling with? Like, what was the trigger or just the moment that created this concept?
I love that question because it was an accident. In other words, we didn't sit down to come up with this. We were literally, I was going to work every day and I love the people I work with and I love what I do. I'm very blessed that way. And yet, for years, I would go to work excited to be there and then I would find myself kind of grumpy and I didn't know why. And it didn't really make a lot of sense. And one day I was in the middle of 3 different webinars. One was presenting leadership principles to Catholic priests. And I loved doing that and helping them understand how to be better leaders. The next one, I had to get a team together on a webinar, on our Zoom call, and give them tough feedback and push them to raise their standards. And then I had another one where we were coming up with a new idea for a podcast. And I went from happy to grumpy to happy in a period of about an hour and a half. And the woman that was with me, Amy, said, "Why are you like that?" And she meant it in a good way. She was just curious. She said, "Why? What makes you like that? Why do you get like that?" And I thought, I don't know, but I want to figure it out. And over the course of the next 4 hours, me and a few colleagues, we were sitting around and realized that depending on what kind of work I was doing, sometimes I was energized and joyful, and sometimes I was just like really drained. And we came up with the fact that there were 3 basic kinds of work, and then we actually realized there were 2 within each. So there were 6 different kinds of activities. And when I was working in the 2 that I loved, I was really happy. And then when I was working in some of the others, I was frustrated and sometimes really frustrated. And we thought we were just solving my problem. And we had it on the whiteboard there. And we thought it was interesting. We weren't trying to come up with a new tool. And then the next day, one of our consultants saw it on the whiteboard and used it with a client. And the CEO said, "This is crazy. This explains who I am." And we realized there's something universal about that. And so we started working on it. And like a week later, Cody, who I work with, who runs the company with us, he said, "This is going to be bigger than the 5 dysfunctions." And we thought there's something really universal here. So it's 5 years later, 1.5 million people have taken this. And just last night, Jeb, I was with the team using Working Genius to help them understand why they're having some challenges. And it explained almost everything. You know, as it turns out, there are 6 kinds of work. None of us are good at all of them. God bless us if we can find a job that allows us to use our geniuses and to avoid having to do too much work in the other areas. So that's how it came about.
I can't believe it's been 5 years. Like
I know.
Because I remember when we first read this book, our COO, who was also my wife, sent it to me, and I was traveling someplace. I'm on the road all the time, and I was reading. I consumed it in about 3 days, and I was on my Kindle. I was reading it, and it just feels like yesterday. We integrate it into our business. We started using it. I don't know that until preparing for this interview, that I've been completely aware of how powerful it is. For example, we have a person on our team that feels a little bit unhappy, and I've noticed that they're not saying they're unhappy. I just noticed they're unhappy. Then I started looking at what this job requires, and then I looked at their Working Genius when we were looking at the team, and I'm like, we got them in the wrong job. Like, they're doing something that's completely opposite of what we need them to do.
This is so important. You know, and at the core of Working Genius, what it does is it allows us to avoid guilt and judgment. Guilt about ourselves and judgment of others. And what I love is when somebody says, "We love this person, they work at our company, but they're not doing well, they're not happy. Maybe we should let them go." And people say, no, actually, let's just realize that they're not in the right job for their Working Genius. And so many times leaders have said, we were going to fire somebody, but we realized they were a cultural fit. We just had them in the wrong seat on the bus. Jim Collins talks about get people on the bus, but you got to get them in the right seat. And so this allows people to have grace and mercy for other people and talk to them about what they're good at and what they're not good at in a way that doesn't feel judgmental or harsh, but is actually just calling out what's true. And what I love about it, it gives leaders the opportunity to say to people, "Hey, I suck at a few things, and here's the proof." And people are like, "You mean we're allowed to call that out?" And they're like, "Yeah, because I know I do. I need help." And whereas in the past, people might have been afraid to say that, now when you put it on paper and say, "Hey, there's some things I'm not good at," it's just really liberating.
Really, Working Genius got dropped in my lap because this summer, you don't know a lot about me, but I travel most years more than 300 nights a year. I'm giving keynotes. I'm on the road. I'm with clients, trying to be the CEO of my company, and I'm not. I'm doing this. This is figuratively, not literally. But I was at the point where I thought I was going to have a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
Because I got up one morning. I'd been on a trip. I came in. I was so excited because today I was going to work on some ideas and think through some things. And then I looked at my calendar, and there were 6 meetings on my calendar.
Oh, wow.
And they were like 15 minutes here, or doing an alignment call with a client here, or Tim had me doing a couple of podcasts. And so I went in that day. I was mad when I got to the office, and I was mad when I left the office, because those are the days where my brain is completely destroyed. And I was so upset that day that I came back the next day, and Tim was part of this conversation. Tim's our producer. He's off camera right now. But I basically made a rule, no more than 2 meetings a day.
Yeah.
And because what I realize is that if I don't have the thinking time, if I don't have the time as a wonder, I'm a WD.
So we're going to talk about your type, because it's really interesting.
If I don't have the thinking time, everything else for me is miserable, and it's just stealing all the energy. And you feel guilty, like you feel guilty telling your people, look, only 2 meetings a day, and I'm going into the new year. I'm going to move it to 1, because I've been happier than at any other time in the last couple of years, because I finally just laid the rule down. This is how it's going to be. But the guilt thing was what allowed me to keep allowing people who think they're helping me and helping other people, because I got my assistant's a helper. She's an enabler, right? So she thinks she's doing people a favor by putting them on a calendar and instead making my life miserable, even though her intention's the right thing. So I tell you that story just to talk about, because you use guilt. Like, as a leader, if you recognize that you're not good at something, or if you recognize that whatever's happening is killing you, and you still want to be a bright
light in your organization, if you still want to be an example for everybody, how do you let that go? Like, how do you let the guilt that I'm not everything for everyone go, and learn how to step into what you're really good at and live that life, walk that walk?
The first step is knowing who you are. And that's what's so great about this. You look at this and you go, I shouldn't feel guilty about this. This is who I am. And my poor assistant, Tara, just last night we had a tough conversation because she's fantastic at helping me and figuring things out. But my calendar sometimes looks like a game of Tetris where we're just fitting it all together. And there are people in life, Jeb, who love that. And they come home from work and go, it was awesome. I had 7 meetings back to back. I got everything done. It was so efficient. And for me, like you, we have different types. I need open space because the way I work, because of my working genius, I get burned out by that. Now, if you said to one of those other people, because one man's trash is another man's treasure, or a woman, that they had a day where they had no meetings scheduled, it was just all open for thinking time, and they would be like, this is driving me crazy. See, that's the thing. The very thing that you're craving and you want, somebody else might be just so frustrated by. And that's the beauty of working genius, is to understand we are all wired by God differently, and we are meant to lean into the things we love. Doesn't mean we get to do it all the time. There's going to be that day when your assistant says, hey, Jeb, I'm sorry, we got 4 meetings, but here's why they're all important. You're going to go, okay, I can do this today. But if that's the norm, it's going to burn you out. And that's what you were doing. You were getting burned out. Burnout is a big part of working genius. And Cody, who I work with, likes to say that burnout is not because you're working too much. It's because you're doing too many things outside of your genius and you're not being fed. I can go home at night and I can get home late and I'll be really energized. My wife will say, where's all this energy coming from? I'm like, I got to do invention and discernment all day long today.
That's right.
I could come home after 4 hours and be frustrated. And it could be because I'm doing all the things that drain me of energy. So the first step is knowing who you are, sharing that with other people around you, and then everybody figuring out how we can shift our work to allow us to lean into the things that give us joy and energy. Because that's what your genius is. It's where you get joy and energy.
Love that. Why do you believe, like right now in today's world, and we're in a weird world right now,
yes,
that the Working Genius framework resonates with teams, people, organizations, and gives them what they actually need to be truly functional? And I think functional is the right word, because there's a lot of dysfunction out there. If you look at like all the fear coming from AI, all the fear coming from the fact that we've got all of these different generations coming together in the workplace, dysfunction seems like it's running rampant. I know that to be true because I'm a consultant, and so I spend a lot of time in dysfunctional situations. How does Working Genius fit into that right now in this space?
I think because work is more fluid than it's ever been. I mean, if you just think about like physical fluidity, since COVID, so many people work remotely. People did before, and in sales, people were out in territories and on the road. But now today, work is more fluid than it's ever been. And so, and that's not just geographically, but just in terms of what your role is. One of the things we like to say, Cody often says this too, is that job descriptions are less important than they've ever been, because you're on a team and it's like, I got to do a little of this and a little bit of that. And when you know what a person's working genius is, you can actually organize their work around who they are rather than these arbitrary lines of job descriptions. And that's just the nature of work today more than ever. Things used to be more tidy and neat and departmental. Today, companies have to get by with fewer people doing more things. And Working Genius allows that to be a productivity enhancer and a motivator. Because then people are like, you mean I get to do all 3 of these things? Some of that seems like sales. Some of that kind of seems like marketing. Some of that seems like ops, but I like all of them. It's like, yeah, if those are your geniuses, we're going to put you in a job to do that rather than keeping you in a cage that says you can only do one thing. In the old days, like when I first started work 35 years ago, you had a job and you did this and that was what it was. And 5 years into your career, you were pretty much trapped. Today, people have the freedom to do new things, and great companies give them that opportunity. So I think it's the fluidity that makes it that way.
There's a lot I want to go down, but I want to back up for a second because you just sparked a thought. We were talking about this morning. We've got a generation of Gen Zs who are coming into the workplace. And one of the patterns that I've noticed, not just in my company, but in other companies, is that as a Gen Xer, looking back in my career in the corporate world, if I was doing a job that I didn't like, or wasn't connected with me. I just did the job, but I would tell my boss, I want something else, I want something else, I want something else. And what I've noticed is that, I'm generalizing a whole generation, so forgive me, but the Gen Zs have a more of a tendency to just shut down versus raising their hand and saying, I want more. And that may be a generalization. Maybe there's a lot of people that way. But if a person knew what their working genius was, and they were in a hole in a company, especially in an entry-level job, a lot of times you don't get the job that you want. You just get the job that you can get. And that will probably become more acute as there are more white-collar layoffs. But if you're in that job, if you knew what your working genius is, how could you explain to people what in that company that you should be doing or what you would be good at? And I know this is more of a personal question, because this kind of goes back to my trying to explain to my team who I am. But the catalyst is that when I just feel like when we were, and you're in the same generation I am, we were much more vocal in, I don't belong here, I want to be here. And I look at all of my clients, and I just noticing that pattern you just don't see as much anymore. People have a tendency to just go away. Maybe it's because they're all working from home and you don't see it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the generation before us, because I'm a Gen Xer too, I am not a boomer. People are like, aren't you a boomer? No, I'm not. But the generation before us, our parents, they just took a job and said, I'm glad to have a job. And I remember saying to my dad, God rest his soul, it's like talking about work. And he said, hey, if it were fun, they wouldn't call it work. And that was the thing. It's like, you should just be glad you have a job. And then our generation, it was the first that began to say, no, you're supposed to like it. And you're supposed to try to engineer it. And so we were supposed to say that. And I just want to say this though, when a person comes to me as a leader and says, I want a promotion or I want more responsibility, if I think it's because of ego, I don't want to give it to them. But if I know it's because it allows them to be better, contribute more to the company, and experience more joy, then I like to give that to them. We had a guy contact us shortly after The Working Genius came out who said he went into a performance review. He knew it wasn't going to be pretty. He hadn't had a good year. He didn't like his work very much. He liked the company, but he wasn't doing very well. And so it wasn't going to be a good conversation. And it was not only his boss, but I guess his boss's boss. And the night before he got the performance review, he did Working Genius. And he went in and he said, can you look at this? And they looked at his Working Genius and they said, well, it's no wonder you're not doing very well. This job is terrible for your strengths. And they said, we have another job. It actually pays more. You'd be great at this. He goes, I got promoted because he went into them and said, I want to contribute for me and for you. And good companies want that. So if you have that context and you say, it's not because I want to just make more money or I want to have more ego authority or anything like that. I just want to do what I'm meant to do so I can help the company more. That allows your boss to help you figure that out. Now, as far as Gen Z goes, gosh, I think there's so many things. COVID impacted this, working at home impacted this. And so I think there's something generational. I have kids throughout that. All my kids are Gen Z. What I will say is this, I would rather know what their working genius is than what era they were born in. Because knowing their working genius means I know how to work with them. And I think sometimes we think about people say like, well, what's it like to working with a woman or somebody that's this age or whatever else? And I think, I don't know, I'd rather look at their profile.
Yeah.
Because that will tell you more about how to get the best out of them than saying, well, they're a Gen Zer. Because a Gen Zer who's got your working genius type or Myers-Briggs or DISC versus somebody else with a different one, that's going to tell you more. So I like to look beyond that and go to what is their profile.
So that leads me to the next question. And
are we going to talk about your profile though? Because I really want to unpack you.
Yeah, we will. What's to unpack me? I like that. We're going to decode Jeb.
That's right.
I like that. When you hear assessment, like you're a leader and you hear assessment. I grew up in the Fortune 500 world. You hear personality assessment.
Yeah,
like a
I
DISC.
loved them. I'm an what do you call that? I just love doing them.
I know y'all are working on some additional assessments here.
I'm an assessment junkie.
Yeah. What's the difference between a personality assessment and the working genius assessment for leaders? Like how, because I know that when we first got into this, I feel like our biggest mistake was we didn't, as you've said, it's a productivity tool. We didn't look at it as a productivity tool. We looked at it as a personality assessment. Yeah. And that was one of the early mistakes I believe that we made that may have slowed down our using it to accelerate our team.
Yeah. I mean, so I love all the assessments. I mean, some more than others. I'm a big Myers-Briggs guy. My wife taught me Myers-Briggs before I started the company. And we started using Myers-Briggs with all of our clients. and internally. And it's a great tool. And I like to say it describes us as a noun. It's like how we're wired to be. And that's great. I'm an ENFP. But what it doesn't do is describe what you do well. And we'd never really seen a tool that we could translate to what kind of role you should have on a team or in a project or in a company. It would tell you kind of like, generally speaking, what your preferences were in life. But when we came up with Working Genius, accidentally, praise God for that, we realized, this is really close to the ground. This is like what you like to do every day. And like, look, in our marriage, my wife and I, we know what our Myers-Briggs are, and we talked about that throughout our lives. But when we figured out Working Genius, we saw how it impacted the way we ran our house and parented our kids and planned a vacation. Because most of marriage is doing stuff together, and that's work. So working at home, getting things done is impacted by this. And my wife and I, after this came out and we did this, we were like, oh my gosh, we can pretty much go back and see why we argued. Because it was when we were having to do things that neither of us have genius for and that we both have frustrations around, neither of us wanted to do it. We got frustrated doing it and it didn't go well. And we used to just get mad at each other. And now it's like, and I was just talking to her about this yesterday. It's like when those things happen now, we just laugh and go, we both suck at that. We'll do our best. But if we ever think that we're going to be good at those things, it's just not going to happen. I said we could have called it the 6 types of doing genius. Because whether we're doing it at work or whether we're doing it at home, it's getting things done. Myers-Briggs is great. I love what you talked about before.
DISC.
DISC. You know what I just realized as you said that? I'm the same 2 letters in DISC as I am in Working Genius. I'm an ID. Isn't that weird? Yeah. I never realized that there were the same letters that we used.
Are you an I first or a D? Are you high I?
Influence over.
And I'm the opposite. I'm ID, all D, and a little bit of I.
Wow. And I have no S and C.
Yep.
None.
Not me either.
None. Oh, that's wild. Yeah. That's probably why
my wife is a S and I'm a D. She's all S, I'm all D. A little bit of C. So it's interesting.
And people that don't know what we're talking about are like, these guys are crazy. We're going to describe Working Genius though, so they'll know.
As a junkie of assessments.
Yeah.
One of the things I love to do, like I go back in the corporate world, I had a whole team and we would run these assessments and get together and talk, and we tried everything and we would just use them to learn how to converse with each other.
Right.
When you first launched Working Genius and you were taking people through the assessments, what were like the junkie moments when you saw people, that light bulb go off, or the aha, when you see people now who do this for the first time, either business leaders, organizations, or individuals, what are those aha moments that you see as a pattern over and over and over again?
The aha moments are my favorite thing in work. Just last night, on the other side of this wall is our conference room. And I had a team in here, and I told my wife and I told the people I work with, I had the most meaningful Working Genius session that I've ever had. I was working with a bunch of really good, well-intentioned people who were having some issues on their team. And we got together, we did the Working Genius, and then we started talking about how they're getting along or not getting along. And so much of it, 95% of it was explainable by their profile. And I said to them, see, what we don't want to do is attribute it to their intentions. They are not trying to annoy you. They are just acting the way God wired them. And once you understand that, and somebody would go like, yeah, we have a hard time with this. And I'd go, let's look at your profiles. Oh, you really love to talk about ideas and you want people to recognize that. And you just want to get stuff done. He actually said GSD.
Yeah.
Get
stuff
done. Yep. It wasn't stuff, but they were like, no wonder you frustrate me sometimes, because when I want to get stuff done and you want to talk about this, oh my gosh. So when I go to a meeting where we're supposed to be coming up with a new idea, I'm going to let you do that. And when we're having a meeting where we got to get stuff done, you don't have to act like. And it's crazy to watch people look at each other and reattribute what they used to attribute to intention or even politics, and realize it's actually just being who you are. So just last night, I watched people have these massive ahas. And one person I thought had kind of given up on the team. And they were just like, why are you not involved? And he told us his type. It was the same as mine. And I got to say, is this what you feel when you come up with an idea? And when they react to it this way, does it just drive you crazy? And everybody on the team was like, oh my gosh, that's what's going on. And he goes, yeah, if they could just do this. And I said, I'm the same way. And so they realized it wasn't him. It was how he's wired. And I mean, there were tears because they were like, we don't have to attribute this to intention. And it was amazing. So those aha moments, they come always. And last night was one of my favorite ones I've had.
I had one just this week getting prepared for this interview.
Really?
So, so my wife, who is in this room, is a DE, and I'm
a warm blanket.
Yes,
the insightful collaborator.
Yes.
Oh, I have them all around me in my company. I love them all. They make life so, they anticipate your issues. You ask them for help and they say, yes, but let me help you with what you really need.
Yes.
They give you extra. They don't just do what you ask them. They actually figure out what you really need. But their first answer is, of course I will help you.
Yes.
Oh, I love DEs.
That's what I'm a problem solver. But in our marriage, I'm the guy, I'm a wanderer, but I'm also a wanderer because I like to travel and go places and experience things.
Oh, I thought you were going to say I'm a wanderer. The women all over the world.
It is exactly. I'm a wanderer. I carry my passport with me everywhere I go. And the last big fight we got into, I said, we're going to go on some cruise or something. And I'm like, we're going to go to Budapest a couple of days early. And she immediately, in my eyes, started shooting the whole idea down. And I didn't realize until I was working this, she is just discerning. That is, she's not shooting the eye down. She's just discerning that, well, we've got this and we've got this obligation. And then what about work? And what about this? And what about that? And the idea person all of a sudden feels like you've been shot in the heart because this great idea that you had coming in the door, the discerner just broke your heart.
Yeah. And you're a WD, right? So you have the highest, genius in terms of in the clouds. And wanderers like to say things like, hey, what about, and my wife is this too. And oftentimes we've learned to say, I'm just wondering. Because when my wife says, I'm just wondering, I can go, oh, okay, you're not actually suggesting it. So I don't have to tell her why it will or won't work. And if she says that to me, I can go, oh, I'm just going to let you wonder, honey. But if I think she's suggesting it and asking for my opinion, then I'm going to say, well, here's why we couldn't afford it. Here's why it wouldn't work. And so the difference between me giving her discernment as a gift of love versus shooting down her, because sometimes when she's wondering, she's just like, can I just wonder? And you can go, yeah, Budapest, that would be really cool. And what about this? You're not actually putting together an agenda. You're just dreaming.
Yes. Yes.
And the difference between me knowing that you're dreaming or me thinking you're actually trying to get me to do something is the difference between how I react. So my wife can now say, she'll say something, I'll go like, oh, wow. She goes, I'm just wondering. I'm like, oh, okay. I set down my discernment and I'm like, let's just dream. Let's just brainstorm.
It's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I am a WD.
Yes.
I'm going to give you a little bit of context. I'm also a high D on DISC. So I'm also a salesperson, a really, really good salesperson.
So you're assertive. You want to make things happen.
Yep. An inventor competency.
Right. So you're way up there at those higher end.
On the higher end of invention. So I'll take wonder, turn it into a concept, and then hand it off to other people to turn it into something bigger. But I'll do the first part of the invention.
Okay. So I want to explain to people. So there's 6 types of work. The first 2 are called wonder and invention. Those are ideation. That's where people say things like, is there a better way to do this? I wonder if we should rethink this. And invention is like, I have an idea. Yeah, let's rethink it. What about this? That's where new ideas come from, ideation. The next 2 are called activation. That's where we actually go, hey, thanks for that idea. Let's evaluate whether it would work. And if it will, let's tweak it. And then when it's ready, let's get everybody excited about it. That's in the middle. The last 2 are called implementation. And that's enablement, which is like, I'll help you, and tenacity, finishing things. So the 3 big things are, and you are heavily oriented toward ideation.
Yes.
Okay. Your top 3 are all up in WID. I've seen your chart. Your frustration, the thing that robs you of joy and energy is when you have to implement, like take it through to the end.
Yes.
And I'm the same. You and I have the same frustrations. I think that in addition to knowing your geniuses, knowing your frustrations is huge. Yeah. Because now you can announce to the world, I'm really bad at some things. So when you ask me to do it, I'll do it if I have to, but I'm not going to be great at it even if I try really hard. So you live up there in that world of ideas. Your wife is a DE. So she's got good intuition, discernment. That's in the activation stage. But she's also enablement, which is implementation. I'll help you get it done. There's going to be meetings that you love. Brainstorming meetings are so fun for you. Solving big problems is great. Planning out what exactly has to happen and how we're going to implement it and staying on top of that is not your fun meeting. And here's the deal. In your own company, you got to go to both. You got to go to both. but you're going to yearn for that meeting, the open-ended one, where you're like, can we just follow our nose? It's like you and I doing this podcast works really well because you're like, we don't have to hit any questions. We don't have to, let's just figure out where it goes. Some people would come here and say, we have 5 questions to hit. We have to get those done. We're going to put this out tomorrow, and I'm going to solicit feedback from people 2 days later. And you and I would be like, oh yeah, the last part of that, we couldn't do any of that. But let's talk about you as a WD. The profile of your combinations is what we call the contemplative counselor. What I mean by that is this. You're really good at looking at a situation, and you go up into there's a lot going on in your mind around it. You're asking yourself questions, you're exploring things, and you like to ponder. You like to ponder. You also are good at nuanced thinking. You can't overthink things because you see all the, but what about this? But what about this? And sometimes that's awesome. And then other times when it's just like, let's just decide. You have to set aside your W and lean into the discernment and go, it doesn't have to be perfect. Let's go.
And that, by the way, is where the high D on the disc really helps me because
Yes.
I do have a tendency to, I'll overanalyze, but when it's time to make a decision, I can make a decision.
So you can override.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And that's why I love Working Genius. I love it in terms of looking at how you get work done, but I love to hear what people's DISC and Myers-Briggs are because it creates kind of a balance for, does something actually regulate that for you, or is it doubly like that? Because there are certain DISC profiles. If a person were all S and C and they're a WD like you, they're going to want data. They're going to want to make sure it's right. They're going to want to wait. Whereas the D in you is just like, we got to make a decision. Let's go.
Imperfect. I always say messy success is better than perfect mediocrity. So
one thing I want to say about all the other assessments, it's all good. Mm-hmm. There's all good things. I've just never seen one like Working Genius that really relates to the work you do.
It's funny because I've used the language. I've said this my whole life. Like I'll complain to my assistant, I don't have enough time to think. I need time to think. And I say the words and everybody's looking at me like you've lost your mind. What do you mean you need time to think? Like I just need space. And when I have space, big things happen, like amazing things happen.
My wife is a W, I'm not. And I'll say, what do you think about this? She goes, I don't know, I have to think about it. And I used to say, why do you have to think about it? I know what I think. Because I would just think and she's like, no, I like to go and reflect. And I'm like, why? And I realized now she's a W. And that's what W's do. They ponder. She can sit and think about things and get up in her head. And 5 minutes of pondering is enough for me. And she's like, no, I can sit and imagine things. And we need that. See, your W is where every new idea starts, which is somebody saying, maybe there's something else here. And I need a W to provoke my invention. Without W, I'm inventing a bunch of stuff that nobody needs.
That's true. I like that. The interesting thing about the invention piece, so it's a competency of mine, but we were talking about this as well. So I'm really good at the top of invention. So we're building a new program, new sales coaching program, and
you're having a blast.
Yeah, and we're rolling it now, imperfectly rolling it, but we're rolling it. It's going, and we're building on it. Where I built the initial part, like I invented the part of it, got my trainers together, gave it to them, let them play with it. I'm more likely to come around on the back end. So they're getting the details put together and then start tearing it apart. So my discernment, which is high in me, doesn't really happen at the top. I don't discern the wonderer. I discern the product of the inventor. Whereas my wife, who is a discerner, she discerns the top end.
Right.
At the very top of the wonder you're turning into invention, she's poking holes in that. I'm like, hey, everything's possible. But then as we get closer to a finished product, I'm starting to beat the product up.
Well, and this is an interesting thing, and I'm sure your wife who's here this will be interesting, the other folks from your company. And that is, what you're actually using your discernment early on. But what you're doing is going, okay, that's enough. That's fun. I'm going to now give it to you guys and let you take it further through. And then you're going to come back in later and rediscern based on where they are. And that's good. But here's the problem. Because I've done this too. We can be on the verge of implementation. And we can go to a meeting where they're saying, okay, we're going to implement this next week. And here's the last things we have to do. And we can go, hey, I have another idea. And then it can be, and what they need to say is, no, you don't. Idea phase is over. Because what we can do is, I will always, and the people here are nodding their heads, I will always want to turn every meeting into another brainstorm. Hey, we can brainstorm this further. And we've learned at my company to go, that part's done. Now, if you want to help us invent, we call it the lowercase I, how we're going to implement it, that's one thing. But we can't rethink it from the beginning because we love to rethink things. Reinventing is fun. And there's a time for it. And here's the thing, there's a time not to. And when people know what your type is, they can go, hey, Jeb, thanks for coming to the meeting. You're going to have to sit on your hands here. We don't have the time to reinvent this. Share your ideas, but know that we're not looking for a redirect. We are looking for efficient execution.
I love that.
Now they're pointing at each other going, that's what I love that. I love that.
One of our biggest problems at salesgravy, so when we looked at our team profile, is we are heavy on discerners and we are light on tenacious people.
Yeah, us too.
We often get in rooms and we end up talking something to death, but we don't get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
And as an executive, the CEO of the company, at the end of the day, we got to be producing stuff. So I get infinitely frustrated because we've been talking, and then this is the idea in me. I go on a trip, I come back, and it's not done yet, and the discerners they're still talking about it. Like that team that you had in your conference room last night. Do you find that there are these types of imbalances on teams?
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming because you just said your team's got the same problem.
Oh yeah, and in fact, we have a team map. Your team takes us. You get a team map, and you look at the 6 types of working genius, and you see where there's gaps and where there's a lot. So yours has a lot of D geniuses and not a lot of tenacity. So you can predict what's going to happen. You have really good meetings. Your ideas are really well thought out, maybe over thought out, but you're never going to just drive a car off a cliff because too many good people are like, hey, what about this? What about this? But then that car might never make it to get going unless you get people to do that. And if you have a person in your organization that does have T, they could get burned out because we're always going, okay, and are you going to make this happen? And they're like, I'm the only one. Now, but what I don't want you to do is throw the baby out with the bathwater, because think about a team, and I've done this with teams that had no D, nobody with D, but lots of people with G, E, and T who just like to get GSD, get stuff done. Well, they will drive a car very fast and very efficiently right off a cliff because nobody said, hey, wait a second, my gut tells me something is wrong here. And they're going to say, gut? What gut? We just have data and we're going to just keep going forward. So everybody, you got to choose your poison. And you have to ask yourself, when we hire somebody or bring in a consultant or think about the way we do things, how do we bring in people that fill in our gaps? Because the team I worked with last night was very big on D, E, and T. So they analyzed things and got things done. But the only people in the room, two people, one had W, one had I, and they felt completely unappreciated. And they said, yeah, I feel like every time I do what I do at a meeting, people are like, could you just stop it? We've already analyzed this. We know what we're doing. Let's just go do this. And so they were realizing, oh my gosh, we have to, because you're either going to really embrace the person who has the minority genius, or you're going to expel them like a virus. Ooh. And when you have a minority genius, the one person with T or the one person with W, whatever it is, you got to say, hey, we know you're on your own. We don't naturally appreciate what you do. We got to cherish you and give you what you need, because without you, we're missing something, because you need all 6 types. That's the beautiful thing about this. You need all 6 types of work. And when teams say, oh, I don't really like working with WIs, they're so flaky. It's like, then you're not going to make it. Oh, these ETs are so anal. They just want to get stuff done on budget. It's like, yeah, and we need them all. And that's one of the things I love about this. It allows us to appreciate everyone because they're all geniuses.
I got so frustrated because we have this big conference that we run every year called the Outbound Conference. Go to outboundconference.com and get your tickets. And the ETs on my team, I'm starting to run early promotions, and I'm just coming out with marketing stuff and doing it on my own. And all the ETs, even one that's sitting over here, got all up in arms and jumped down my throat, and we're all upset. And I'm just going, we're just moving forward. And because they're like, we need to have the budget and the prices right, and we have to do all these things.
And you can say, oh, you're doing that because that's how you're wired, and I appreciate that. You can also say, we do have to lean into the fact that the reason why salesgravy is done well is because we're an idea company and we move on things. So I'm not going to hold you accountable for perfect execution when I'm out doing this, but I appreciate that you're pushing back on me because we need the balance. Yes. But you can say, I think we need to err on the side of ideas versus safety.
Yes.
But I love the fact that we've got some safety people in here. And most people, when they know they've been heard and seen, they can do that.
And it's true on sales teams. The salespeople are always complaining because there are people in the organization holding them back. The internal sales harder than the external sell. And when I'm with sales teams, I say the same thing every single time. I said, if you didn't have the safety people on the team, you would burn the place to the ground.
Yes. And if you didn't have the other people, you'd have a perfect system with no new thoughts and ideas that draw through people in. And that's what I wanted. I want the ETs to go, I'm so glad you're a WD because, man, I couldn't do that. I want you to go, I'm so glad you're an ET because I couldn't do that. That's the difference between people resenting one another and celebrating one another. And it's the difference between failure and success too. So
just a quick sidebar on this is, do you find that there are consistent patterns with working genius gaps on teams, like where you see overall these are big gaps that teams have consistently, or is it just team by team, leader by leader?
It's team by team and leader by leader.
So sometimes it's the leader's personality or their particular genius, and they're bringing people in that are like them that validate the way that they feel.
Sometimes that's what they do, and it's like, I'm a GT. Which is kind of the butt kicker. I get things done and I get people going. And I want other people around who do that too. And then it's like, oh, but those other people are the very thing that we had a team where the CEO was an ET, the last two. He was an implementer. He was data and get things done. And everything he was not flaky at all. But his company was in technology. They had no WI on the executive team. And they hadn't come up with a new product in years. So it was all legacy products and squeezing more revenue out of what they had. And they looked at their working genius thing and they said, what are we going to do? Well, they had one guy on their team that had Invention, and he was their lawyer. And they go, we're in trouble. First of all, I don't know if you want your lawyer to have Invention, and they said, you're the only one that likes to come up with new ideas and think about the future this way. And they said, why don't you take over new technology? And he was like, but I'm the lawyer. And they go, yeah, but you like Invention. He goes, I love Invention. And I'd love to do that, but nobody would ever ask me that. And they said, no, you're the best at doing that. So they filled that gap with a guy. And I went back 2 years later to see and I thought, oh no, he's gone. No, he was just no longer their legal counsel. He was completely in technology, which is really cool. And that's the thing. You look at your organization and say, what are we missing? And you could say, I always thought you should be in this job but I look at your working genius, you can do more. And so anyway, there's no pattern though. There's no pattern.
It's one of the aha for us in looking at our team, and as we're continuing to grow and we're hiring, we've got a whole group of people in our business plan we're hiring next year, is that we realize that with specific roles, and this is the way the world works now, where there's all these digital corners, and we've got people in our team that are having to massage all these digital corners of the world for promotion and marketing and lead generation, that the roles that function best in that space are ITs. So they've got to, on their own, come up with great ideas and invent, but they also have to follow through because there's not a team around them that are working on this thing. So we've got Grace in our room over here, who is the only IT in our entire team. She's got a really, really long title that I'm not going to try to tell you because I don't get it. But she's our YouTube genius. Right. But she does a whole lot of other things, but she's brilliant. And the work she's getting done is incredible. And
who cares what her job title is?
Exactly.
She comes up with new ideas and finishes things.
Exactly.
Now, Grace, what you need is a good friend in the organization with discernment. So you can go, I love this new idea. Could you please discern? She's pointing at somebody on the team. Can you make sure that your gut is saying this is right? Because that's the thing. You eye something, and the discerner, Tracy's a discerner in our organization, and she'll look at something I wrote and go, I like this. Or no, keep working on it. Because you don't want Grace to jump right to implementation until somebody with discernment has said, oh yeah, I really like this. That's not like that. And she wants that too. It's not like, you have to control me. She's like, I want to know that somebody else has already gut level considered this before I move to implementation. That's how that's how productivity changes in an organization. Grace knows to go to somebody else and say, I need your help.
You talked about the fluidity of work earlier, and that job titles don't always mean anything in today because we're just all trying to get things done, especially in small organizations like ours that are agile and moving and we have limited resources. So I've got two questions.
I got a sales story too I want to tell you.
Oh, awesome. Okay. A two-part question for you. How important are these working genius pairs, like an I and a T, in building a team or building an organization? And what's the best advice you would give to leaders today when they've got to accomplish something? And we're in business to accomplish things. They got a project, they've got a target, they've got anything. Like it could be even like putting a group of salespeople together on a large account team that have to work together.
Oh, yeah.
How to build that cross-functional team. So you're literally sitting there, you're the leader, you've got to reach inside the organization as an architect and pull this group together. If you were using Working Genius as a guide, and maybe we can plug 5 dysfunctions in here as well, right? How would you use that as a guide that would light your path and build the team that would help you accomplish your goal?
We decided that building a team is a 3-step process.
Okay.
The first step is, do they belong on the bus, as Jim Collins said, and that's our book called Ideal Team Player. But that's just, are they humble, hungry, and smart?
Okay.
Because if it's a team, they can't be all ego. It can't be about them. They can't be lazy and a slacker, and they can't be dumb. Not about technology or anything, but about people. That's what smart means. So the first thing we do is say, if you're going to bring somebody on a team, make sure they have maximum levels of humble, hungry, and smart.
Okay.
Then we say, now once they're on the bus, get them in the right seat using Working Genius. Do you have the right, are they in the right role? And in sales, there's multiple roles. That's the thing. There's a lot of different ways to sell. And that people think a salesman is a salesman is a salesman or woman. It's like, no, they're not.
That's true.
Depends on the market, depends on the industry, depends on the customer, the product, or just how they do things. You can have 2 salespeople that both hit and blow away their numbers, and they do it slightly different ways because they have different geniuses. Then you move to the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And when you do those first 2, you've built tons of trust. You take that trust and you say, now how do we use that to engage in healthy conflict, to commit to clear decisions, to hold each other accountable, and to get results? And because sales is all about results. So that's how it all fits together. But the thing to start with is make sure that the people on your team are not egregiously lacking in humility, hunger, and emotional intelligence. But let me tell you a sales story that I love because it kind of goes with this. So there was this company, right after we came out with Working Genius, that we heard this story. It was great. And it was a company in Oregon. They did food. And they had a woman in charge of sales, and she was fantastic. She was a cultural fit, number one thing. She belonged in the company, humble, hungry, smart, values. And her customers loved her. She always made her number. The salespeople she managed loved her. She responded to their needs. She was always there to help them. She was super reliable. The market changed, and they had to kind of come up with a new sales strategy. The CEO goes to her and says, I need you to come up with a new sales strategy. And she goes off and she tries, and she can't do it. She's just blocked. And she keeps coming back and saying, I can't do it. And he said, I was thinking about letting her go because she's the VP of sales. And if she can't come up with a sales strategy, maybe that's the ceiling of her ability. They did Working Genius. She was an ET, which means enablement. When somebody comes to a customer or employee and says, I need your help, she's like, yeah, what do you need? And then tenacity. She made her numbers, closed things, figured things out. She didn't have W&I. Right. So she said, I don't know how to come up with a new sales strategy. They found a guy in marketing. Yes, in marketing. Sometimes marketing and sales can work together. And he wasn't a WI. And they said, can you come to our offsite meeting and help us with this? In 45 minutes, he helped them figure out a new sales strategy. The CEO said, I was going to fire one of my best employees at a senior level because I just didn't understand. She can't be good at everything.
Right.
She was awesome at managing her team and pleasing customers and making this work. I could actually borrow somebody else from the organization, and he can come to every one of their offsites every quarter and kind of relook at the bigger picture. That's what this allows people to do. Without that language, literally so many people let people go. I loved them, but they just couldn't do this. It's like, well, nobody can do all of that. And that marketing guy that was a WI could not hit a number and carry a bag and close a deal. And so we need to ask ourselves, are we looking at them holistically as who they are, or are we looking at them just in terms of that role and thinking they have to do everything in it?
So you've got the gear symbols, right? Everything's working together.
That was my wife's idea.
Right. So it really is just like finding the right gears that connect together. So when the machine is rolling, you're getting output on the other side.
Yes.
So you mentioned sales. So sales is a weird world. The one thing that I know how to do is sell, award-winning salesperson. And when I was on a sales team, the hardest thing about being on a sales team was being on a sales team because I got rewarded for selling and closing business. And every sales team I work with has got the same problem. They've got performers out there that are hitting their numbers, right? But they don't share, at least they're not aligned to the team outcomes. And I'm curious about your thought on leaders who are trying to get these teams to work together, and they struggle with that.
Yeah, so I think this is one of the things we say team too often. The word teamwork is not a virtue, it's a choice. It's a good thing. It's like virtuous, I think, many of the characteristics that go with it. But too often we say, we have a sales team. And the question I want to ask is it really a team or is it a golf team? Like you run the North region, the South and West, and the
It might be a golf team.
East. And I want you all to make your numbers. You have a team in that region, but I'm actually just going to add up your scores at the end and you're going to get a reward. I don't expect you to sacrifice. If you're a basketball team, though, I expect you to make sacrifices further. So if the West region is making their number and the East isn't, I expect you to send resources over there or take your eye off your ball and go help them. That's what a team does. Like, I know you love to rebound, but we need somebody to play defense. Or you like to shoot, but this is a game against a man-to-man offense, so we need to throw the ball down low. A basketball team has to make trade-offs because all we care about is one score. A golf team says we want to maximize everybody's score and you're on your own. And I think that's a good thing because when you say to people, you're on a team, we see this all the time in all kinds of business, but sales in particular, it's like, man, if I make my number, I make good money and I get promoted. If he doesn't, that's up to him or her. That's not a team. So people say things like, well, is our compensation, does it promote teamwork? Do we evaluate people's performance just based on their number or how they treat one another? If you have nothing encouraging teamwork other than a poster at a sales kickoff, that's not teamwork. Now, it's so interesting. I was on a college campus a few years ago, and it was a bunch of seniors getting ready to graduate, and they did the Working Genius right there. They did it right there because, of course, they didn't do anything. And I said, just take out your phone and do it. It takes 12 minutes. And then I said, anybody have a job lined up already? And a guy raised his hand, and I said, what are you going to do? And he goes, cold call sales. But he didn't say it like that. He went, cold call sales? And I said, what's your Working Genius? And he told me it was WE, which means wonder and enablement. And I said, oh, son, I don't know if you're going to like that job. He goes, I haven't even started and I already don't like it. Because you have to be disruptive. You have to push people out of their comfort zone. You have to go, I love obstacles. His geniuses were what we call double responsive, which means he just wants to be supportive. Now, there's certain kinds of sales that would work in relationship sales and things like that. But his was cold call, door to door, pick up the phone, convince people to buy something that they probably didn't want.
That's exactly right.
And I said, don't do that job. Because what's going to happen, you're going to do it for a year, you're going to fail probably, and you're going to be miserable, and you're going to lose confidence in life. My first job out of college was the number one job in America that year. They wrote a book, and I got the job at the management consulting firm in a role that paid more than anybody else and was like, my life was set. It was actually geared around the two geniuses that I had the least of. 2 years later, I barely hung on. I left feeling like a failure. And I thought, I guess I'm a fraud. I got good grades. Did well in other things, but I didn't like this. And I realized 40 years later when I did Working Genius, I should have said, hey, this is the best job in the world for somebody that's really good at tenacity and enablement. For me, this is actually the worst job in the world. No matter what it pays, no matter how cool people think it is, I suffered for 2 years and lost confidence. And what a great thing is if you can go to your son or daughter early in their career or coming out of college and say, find out what you're meant to be and try to find a job that leans into that. Or if you're struggling in your career right now, figure out why. And maybe you can go to your boss and go, hey, see this? I think if I could lean there, they might find a better job for you. Or they might say to you, I want to help you leave here and find another place to work where you can use your geniuses. And you might look at that as the greatest blessing in your life.
And that's so true about sales. There's so many different sales roles and sales jobs out there. And I probably repeat this a dozen times a week. Don't do that. You're going to be miserable doing that. That is not who you are. Now, sometimes I'm not using an assessment. The person's talking to me and I'm going, you do not want to be doing cold calls all day long because you're going to be terrible at it. On the other hand,
you know what you're doing right there? You're using your discernment. Because you're looking at them going, you're seeing in them in a nonlinear way, oh, you're going to be miserable. And they'd say, how do you know? And really what you're doing is, I don't know, my gut is telling me that. And then if you gave them the assessment, your gut would be confirmed.
Exactly.
Now, other people would go, I don't know. I don't have any discernment. Take the assessment. I'll look at it and interpret the results with you. But you can look at a person and just kind of have the sense of like, I've seen this movie before, and you're going to not like this.
In the real world, as a leader, let's take this as a leader, sometimes as team members, people on our team, you have to do things that fall into your area of frustration.
Everybody does.
You were analyzing me earlier, but I'm an author and I write a lot of books, and I'm usually writing 2 a year, and I don't have anybody to finish the book but me, and I'm on a deadline, and there's an advance out there, so they get kind of upset if I don't hit the number. And
without that advance, probably wouldn't have finished.
That's probably true.
You needed a deadline, right?
That's probably true. I need a deadline. I absolutely need a deadline.
Other people don't need deadlines.
Yeah. And actually we were saying this while we was talking to Tim earlier, and we mentioned him earlier, but I'm like, the closer I get to a deadline, the more likely it's going to get done.
Yeah.
But I have to step into that. I got to toggle into that space, and I have to do it as a CEO sometimes. I have to sit down with my company and go, we are going to finish this thing.
Yeah.
I just did this fall with a website. We're going to finish it. We're finishing it this week. I sat down with the team and I got in the middle of it. It was painful and excruciating, but we by God got it done.
If I didn't have Tracy, my editor, who has discernment, and by the way, she had no experience doing this. She is truly a genius editor. I can send her something and she will send it back to me the next morning or the next day and say, this works, this doesn't. She's always right. And I fundamentally trust her. She also has tenacity higher than mine. It's not one of her geniuses, but she will kick my butt to finish things. If I didn't have her around, I don't know how many of my books I'd have finished. So the thing of what you need to do is, and she would say, well, if you weren't here, where would these ideas come from? So we need to be in teams.
Well, that is true, because Christina, my developmental editor, we're working on a book, she's coming in behind me and making suggestions. I'm always under pressure because I know she's coming in behind me. So yes. I feel an obligation to her that I don't get behind in what I'm doing. Right. Now, sometimes I push her, but that's true. There's someone there with me. So let's just think about that for leaders who aren't authors, and you and I. There's
something I want to say something before we move forward. This idea of having to do things outside of your genius is real.
Right.
People say, what's the right percentage? I don't know, but most of us have 20 or 30% of our jobs that we don't love. If you can get it down to 10, you're a lucky person. Think about being a parent. Okay. I'm an ID, new ideas, discerning things. My wife is a WI, even higher up on my new ideas, cranking them out there and pondering things. We had to change their diaper, drive them to class, prepare their lunch, pay the bills. We're not good at any of those things, but we loved our kids, so we had to force ourselves to do that. If we could have outsourced more of that, knowing Working Genius, my wife, when she read the book, she was like, oh crap. I said, what? She goes, it's so good and I'm so mad. Why? She goes, I did so many things I didn't like to do that I didn't have to do, but she felt guilty because some of her friends were great at it. So why am I not great at paying the bills and staying on top of things? Now she realizes she could have outsourced it without guilt. But we will never be able to avoid doing things in our working frustrations. But to know it's my working frustration and go, I'm going to do it. I don't like it. I'm going to force myself to do it. And I'm not going to feel bad if I'm not perfect. If you come to my house, it will never be completely in order. Neither my wife and I are like that. And she and I can now go, welcome. It's a little bit messy. We're just like that. We have friends, because they're living in their genius, their house will always be in order. And we don't criticize them for being anal. They don't criticize us for being messy. We're just all living the way God wired us. And it's about time we accepted that. Now, does that mean we can be filthy? No. Does that mean those other people shouldn't be okay with somebody leaving a cup out? There's a difference between OCD and being organized. I have OCD, so I know. But the thing about it is, let's accept how God wired us and stop feeling guilty and trying to be something we're not.
I'm laughing because we have the same problem, and because we have no tenacity, so we had to invite tenacity into our house. Like, we had to find tenacity. Yes. Her name is Sherry, and I remember the day that Sherry sat down with us and said, "Here's how you wash dishes." After there's two of us living in the house, you take your dishes and you put them in the dishwasher, and every night before you go to bed, you run the dishwasher. And you'll never have this problem. And I remember looking at her going, my mind is completely blown. That's how you keep a kitchen clean? Like, you do that? But Sherry comes in, and she is getting stuff done, and everything gets perfect, and then we mess it up. So that idea of finding that tenacity and bringing it in, because my question was, like, how do you toggle on and toggle off? And basically what you said is you find a person that can toggle you on and toggle you off, and be there as a reflection of when do you need to move into that area of frustration.
The more you can outsource, the better. And then the times when you can't, you just offer it up and say, I'm going to do my very best, and I'm not going to be down on myself for not doing it as well as somebody who has it as a genius.
Shifting into the modern world we live in. So we are in a absolutely disruptive, fearful time. AI has invaded our world. It is in everything that we do. For folks who read my books, the AI Edge, we are working on the next iteration of that. AI is everywhere. People are afraid. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal that said this was the only tech revolution that is creating hope and fear at levels we've never seen before.
Yeah.
So when we look at AI and we think about it from our roles and jobs and the things that we do, everybody knows that AI is coming for some portion of your job. In some cases, it's coming for everything. If you're a paralegal, for example, that role may not exist 5 years from now. But a lot of the roles are not going to be disintermediated at that level. So I'm curious that as leaders, and this is more high level, your CEOs, your C-level, you're looking at these jobs out there and looking how AI is coming in. How can you leverage Working Genius to look at the people and the roles that you're leading right now, and then as AI comes in to take jobs, get those people positioned to win with AI based on that Working Genius? And I know that's a philosophical, high-level question. As a wanderer, you've probably thought about it.
It's not one of my geniuses, though. But I've been forced to think about it.
Okay.
Because it keeps coming up.
Okay.
And people like you, damn it, keep asking this. No, it's a
That's
good question.
You said ID. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Oh, yeah. But it's a good question. And I have a very strong opinion about it. And that is, St. Thomas Aquinas said the answer lies in the middle. People that say, oh, it's great, it's going to be great, you shouldn't be afraid of it at all, they're wrong. Mm-hmm. People that say, oh my gosh, it's going to end everything, are wrong. Mm-hmm. I'm probably a little more fearful than optimistic because of Jurassic Park, where they said just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. Yeah. And there's too many people in technology today who are like, oh, we could do that? We could outsource all that? Let's do it. It's like, no, there's human dignity in work. There's also human interaction, and we want to avoid isolation. And just because a car could take me to the airport without a driver, WTF? I like talking to the driver, and he or she needs a job, and that's good. And at the end of the day, it's not always economically a good decision to take people out of the equation because there's judgment that needs to be there, and there's emotion, and there's human dynamics that we actually need to value that you can't put on a spreadsheet. So I don't like the fact that there's people out there going, hey, we're already dominating the market. Our margins are huge. Let's get robots to replace all the people. That's just so unwise. All right. Now, having said that, there's new things that we can do if we use AI, and there's ways to do things better, not just for pure convenience, but because we need to get better at them. There's diseases we can solve, and there's ways that we can actually help our customers better. But we have to ask the question, we have to have a true north and ask ourselves, is this good? And there's not enough of that going on in society today. And people can go, well, do we really need somebody to deliver food to my house? The answer is, yeah, I want to tip that guy, and I want to say thank you. I want to see how he's doing. And he's an entry-level job. And it's somebody he's 17 or 24 and needs the job to get by. He's driving or she's driving Uber to make ends meet. Just because we can replace them doesn't mean we should.
I like that.
But there's certain things that we can do to make it better. And one of the problems with AI when we talk about it is we're talking about so many different things.
Yes.
ChatGPT to help us do better research and do quicker and understand things can be great. My son's in college. He uses ChatGPT to actually prepare for tests because it can do a sample test for him. Or he goes to the lecture and he couldn't understand the professor. He can say, tell me this, and it'll explain something better. That's good. He's learning more. He can also have it write his papers for him, so he doesn't have to go to class. That's bad. So the true north matters. Then we go to the other end of AI, which is adaptive AI, which is governments in countries without a good true north are using it to suppress their population and do geopolitical dominance using weapons and military and drones. That's really dangerous because then the human thing is gone. In the middle, there's work. And we have to ask ourselves, what's the value of human beings? You'll never be able to outsource judgment and kindness and the human interaction. Salespeople still, I've bought things online, and a bot helped me solve a problem well. Other times, somebody pick up the phone and talk to me, and I am loyal to that company for years. And so we'll never be able to replace relationship and sales and judgment. So we just have to be wise.
Sales is the most human career choice in the age of AI, period.
Isn't it?
Dealing with people. I do think that if we looked at, if I think about the frustrations out there, that if I looked at my frustrations and I looked at AI and said, how can AI help me be my Sherry, right? How can it help me solve a frustration? If I looked at it that way, would that be a more responsible way of pulling AI into the organization versus saying, here's AI folks, go figure it out, but say, this is what's frustrating in your job. If AI could pull some of this work off of you, could you work in a job that might not completely fit you, but because we took the things off that were frustrating you, now it's a job that gives you more joy?
See, and if you're this is a great question, Jeb. If you're in an industry where the margin is this thin and you're going to go out of business if you don't use AI to do it, I can sit here and wax eloquently and philosophically all I want, but find a way to get it done. Yeah. But if you're in a business where you're like, our margins, we're doing good work, another person could actually fill in that gap for me. And that gives them the dignity of work, and it gives me interaction. And all other things being equal, find the person. Find the person. Sherry coming into your home and helping you with that stuff. Yes, you can get AI to go, every night, hit the dishwasher button and you will do this. But Sherry, she knows you. You know who her kids are. She's having a bad day and you get to pray with her and love on her. AI is never going to do that, man. And so let's actually think about those things. I'm not Pollyanna-ish. I realize sometimes we need that, but sometimes we make these decisions and we replace people and then we lose the whole human element. And here's the thing. Just because a company can deliver toothpaste to my door in 12 minutes using a drone, at some point I have to say, is that convenience worth what that's going to do to the jobs of friends, family, and neighbors? I don't want a company that wants to do that. I want a company that really wants to care for people, customers, and their employees. So it's a balance. And let's not ignore either side of that.
I love it. What a great message. Two more questions. I know we've got a great offer for our listeners with the Working Genius, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But you've got one message to give to our audience, and we're B2B sales professionals, entrepreneurs, business people, sales leaders, about the Working Genius and using it right now to make your life better. What would that message be?
St. Francis once said, seek to understand more than to be understood. And that is really try to figure out who that person you're working with is. But give grace to yourself too. Some people are so hard on themselves and that's why they can be hard on others. And they can be like, I should be better at this. And it's like, no, I shouldn't. I wasn't made to be great at that. And then you can look at somebody else and go, oh yeah, you shouldn't be great at that either. That's not your genius. So it's about grace and mercy and high standards. So combine both of those things. And understand people and understand yourself, and everything gets easier.
So it's like doing the best with the talents that God gave you.
Absolutely. And don't denigrate them. See, what happens is often people that don't accept compliments have a hard time accepting criticism. Celebrate what you're good at. And it's not humility to deny it. It's for you to say you're a deep thinker that comes up with new ideas and really crafts them. No, not really. That's a violation of humility. It's true. It's also a violation of humility to think you're good at things that you suck at. I'm not so bad at finishing things. I'm pretty organized. No, you're not. And when you deny that, you're violating humility. So
love it. Okay, so you got a special offer for our listeners and watchers for taking the Working Genius assessment. So an opportunity for you to find out what your Working Genius is and how you can leverage it to make your life better. And I want to repeat this, make your home life better. If you're struggling at home, this could be a watershed moment for you and your significant other.
I parent differently knowing that my kid's Working Genius. I wish I'd known this 20 years ago, but that's all right. Thanks, God. So go to workinggenius.com, 2 G's in the middle, workinggenius.com, and type in gravy when you're checking out with that that code and you'll get a 20% discount.
And for all the folks that are north of the Mason-Dixon line, gravy does not have an E in it. It's Gravy. So workinggenius.com, use the code gravy. And for everybody, go buy this book. I read this book in about 3 days. It was wonderful. It starts off with a great story and a fable to bring you in. Some of that I recognize in the stories that you've been telling me about your own life. And then it teaches you how to use this tool. It's a productivity tool. It's a life-changing tool. It's a transformation tool. And I say this, and I want everybody to know this, and I say this all the time about things like Working Genius. Nobody paid me to do this. We voluntarily brought this in our organization. We run our company on Working Genius because we believe in it, and I believe in it for you too. Pat, thank you so much for joining us on the Sales Gravy podcast. It has been a pleasure and an honor to spend time with you.
It's truly a pleasure for me too, and I'm really glad you and your team could be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We'll see you next time on the Sales Gravy podcast.
Hey, I'm doing a happy dance because you watched this video. Make sure that you click like and subscribe so that you never miss one of our amazing sales training videos.